Do you realize that the past, starting from yesterday, has actually been abolished? Hello and welcome to Emma's ESL English. Yesterday was George Orwell's birthday. He was born on June 25th, 1903. So today I want to do a little homage to, that's French, I stole it. I didn't steal it. The whole British language stole it. So sorry, French people, we stole your language again. Anyway, a little homage to George Orwell. So I'm going to read a short excerpt from his book 1984, which is very relevant to today's situation that we're all stuck in. George Orwell was an Englishman. He was born in India, but we don't say that he's Indian because he was from a British family. He was born in 1903. He was born into a family that used to be very wealthy and definitely part of the upper class. His great-great-grandfather was a slave owner, among other things, but the money had kind of gone. So he was then basically a middle class when he was born. He came back to the UK pretty early on. His father stayed out in India. His mother came back to the UK. Eventually, he went to school at Eton. So despite the fact that he's now considered essentially middle class, he's still very much getting the upper class education. He went in a scholarship to all of the education he got, and he didn't go very far with his education, actually. But he did go to Eton, get the fancy boys' school. He moved around a lot. He was a very busy man. He decided after school to go and become a police officer in India. And he went back and he learned Burmese. He was based in Burma and he didn't like it very much, but he was very interested in the philosophy and religion of the area. George Orwell is, I think, kind of special in that he was of the upper class, theoretically, but not really mentally. He is described as being in India and struggling because he was working for the British Empire that he hated, but he also didn't really like the Indian people either because they were making his job very difficult, probably because they also hated the English Empire, to be fair, the British Empire. He was aware of empire as a young person and he was very interested in philosophy, but he also was very interested in everyday people, in poverty, how poverty worked, how it affected people. I think reading through his Wikipedia page, I really felt like if you want to be a writer, he is a person to look up to. He worked so hard for his writing in a way that I don't think many people do. Really. So he was a police officer and then he came back to the UK and he decided he was going to be a writer. And he set about creating a career for himself, but it wasn't easy. And actually, he went about it in the most difficult way you could go about a writing career. He decided to embed himself in poverty-stricken areas to learn about the lives of those people and then to write essays about them, and later he would include those ideas in books. George Orwell, not his actual name. His actual name was Eric Arthur Blair, and George Orwell was his pen name. It was not his only name. He was also known as P.S. Burton. This was when he was going into those poverty-stricken areas. He was known as P.S. Burton. In those experiences, he lived homeless. He lived as a tramp on the street. He went into hospitals. He went into police stations. He was in the cells sometimes. He got himself into quite a bit of trouble. And every time he would come out with stories to tell. He was very, very against totalitarianism, which is what we really know him for. In his books Animal Farm and 1984, I'm going to read you a little tiny snippet out of that in a minute. He's heavily against totalitarianism in every form, and he decided to go to Spain to try and fight against the totalitarianism that was moving in. George Orwell is described as a novelist, poet, essayist, journalist, and critic in his Wikipedia page. He was also a teacher. And at certain points, he was also a soldier, and obviously he was a police officer as well. So quite a wide and varied life. And he would quite often go and do his investigations, and then he would come back and write papers, write essays, write pieces to go into newspapers, and write books. And in the beginning, his books didn't get much coverage, but slowly as time went by, he became more well-known and his books started to become more and more famous. The challenge came around the war because he was so anti-totalitarianism. He was really anti-Russia as well as obviously whatever was happening in Spain and Germany. And this really caused a bit of a challenge because there were some people who felt that we should be allied with Russia, and he really felt that that wasn't okay either. And so he did get himself into some trouble, and going to Spain didn't help matters at all. He seems to have been ill most of his life with various different lung diseases, but the man can write. His writing really brings ideas to life. Actually, it's kind of interesting. When he went to school in Eton, he was actually taught by Aldous Huxley. Aldous Huxley is a very similar kind of writer. A lot of his books are based around different ways, or novels, same as him. He was doing a lot of a similar kind of writing, but also thinking about different ways that the world could be, different kind of circumstances. Another very prolific writer. So there's a lot of these kind of sci-fi-ish type of writers were living around a similar time and knew each other and talked to each other and certainly influenced each other. So this is just a short paragraph from 1984. I did read another piece from 1984 quite a while ago. I will link to that in the description. 1984 is a very, very famous book. It's growing in fame now because of the time period that we're in now. It's very dark. It's called a dystopian novel. Dystopia is the word that we use to describe stories that potentially have a very dark ending or are set in a very end of the world type of place and situation. 1984 is definitely that. A totalitarian regime has taken over the UK. There are also regimes on both sides of it. So essentially we have three totalitarian regimes existing simultaneously, and they're always fighting with each other. So everybody is kept in this constant state of threat. But one of the things that happens in 1984 is he demonstrates how in totalitarian regimes, they can erase history and they can change what's happened. With a few quick changes, suddenly the whole of history changes. And he shows this very often when they start supporting one enemy and then they switch to supporting the other enemy. And it happens so instantly, and everything happens in front of everybody's eyes, but it's almost as if the history of supporting the other guy is completely erased in a matter of minutes, and everybody just remembers this past, partly out of fear, but partly out of how everything changes. He also talks about surveillance. In 1984, there are cameras everywhere. You're being watched all the time. So this idea of surveillance that we very much experience today with all of our big tech, it was very much embedded in 1984. It is a scary book. It is mostly a bunch of dudes. There's one girl. She is the most flat character. It is the worst writing of a woman. Not the worst, but not the best. The book is great. I'm not impressed with this female character, but the book is fine. Okay, here we go. He tried to make her understand. This was an exceptional case. It wasn't just a question of somebody being killed. Do you realize that the past, starting from yesterday, has actually been abolished? If it survives anywhere, it's in a few solid objects with no words attached to them, like that lump of glass there. Already we know almost literally nothing about the revolution and the years before the revolution. Every record has been destroyed or falsified. Every book has been rewritten. Every picture has been repainted. Every statue and street and building has been renamed. Every date has been altered. And that process is continuing day by day and minute by minute. History has stopped. Nothing exists except an endless present in which the party is always right. I know, of course, that the past is falsified, but it would never be possible for me to prove it, even when I did the falsification myself. After the thing is done, no evidence ever remains. The only evidence is inside my own mind, and I don't know with any certainty that any other human being shares my memories. Just in that one instance in my whole life, I did possess actual concrete evidence after the event, years after it. This is because somebody gave him a piece of paper and spoiler alert, never mind. George Orwell passed away on the 21st of January 1950 from complications with pneumonia and TB, I think tuberculosis. He wasn't well. Anyway, I would definitely recommend reading this book if you're into dystopian novels. I felt like I needed to read it because of what we're living through. And it definitely informed me. It also scared the life out of me. So if you don't like dark stories and you prefer happy endings, give it a wide berth. Oh, good idiom. Give it a wide berth means go around it, very far away from it. Okay. There you go. Tomorrow it is George Orwell's birthday. Eric Arthur Blair. I hope you enjoyed that. He's a very interesting guy. Certainly go check out his Wikipedia page. He had a very interesting life and he was prolific. He wrote a lot of stuff. Quite an interesting guy. I'll see you next time. Bye.